Alright, so check this out. I forgot about this one till now. I was at the daycare, fixing my reports about the kids' growth and development while at the desk during nap time. The lights were off, but the room wasn't pitch black thanks to my trusty lamp. Enter my coworker, on a quest for something from the storage closet. I'm pretty sure it was construction paper or paint. It was stashed up pretty high, and I tried my best to direct her. As she chatted from the closet, claiming she couldn't find it, I teased about the hidden step stool. I was laughing and shaking my head, but when I walked in, I discovered an empty closet. No sounds, no coworker. I checked the connecting coat room and the bathroom before questioning others, half jokingly wondering if I was just, being pranked or something. Turns out, she had left for lunch 20 minutes prior, as confirmed by another coworker. My nerves shot up when the supposed prankster returned. I asked about the construction paper or paint, but she had no clue what I was talking about. One of the comments under this story asks, "Did you actually see her, or did you just hear her voice?" And the OP replies, "I physically saw her and made eye contact and looked up to witness her rummaging through the closet. As she searched for the items, she was wearing the exact same outfit when I saw her come back from lunch later and when I asked her about it." I'm still trying to come to terms with half of the things that I experienced there. Weird things are happening with my cat. I have 2 cats, a calico cat and a gray cat. Ever since I got them, weird things have been happening with the gray cat. Sometimes it would walk past the couch that I was laying on and disappear into the bathroom doorway, only for me to see it coming from a completely opposite doorway and then move the same way into the bathroom again. I shrugged it off at first and assumed it had gone back without me paying attention, but the weird thing is it kept happening, and I would, at times, watch it go into the doorway, take my eyes away for just a second, and looking back, I would see it walking towards and through the same doorway that it just disappeared into. The only logical explanation that I had for this was that it had ran past me right as I took my eyes off it and started walking towards the bathroom as soon as I looked at it again, which in itself seems highly unlikely. Only my brother and I have seen this happen, and we brush it off with jokes, assuming, or maybe hoping, there's a logical explanation. Another weird thing that happens with the gray cat is sometimes I would hear it scratching on the front door, wanting to come inside after I let it out. I would go out, open the door, and then we would walk back to the couch together. And as soon as I sit and start watching TV again, I would hear scratching on the door again. Assuming it's the other cat, I would go open the door, only for the gray cat to walk in again with me. Looking back at the couch, I'd see nothing. I didn't have any windows open at the time because it was night, and even if it had found another opening, I remember pushing it off my lap as I went to open the door, so it couldn't have gone outside again. This has been witnessed by the whole family, as it used to happen during supper. It would go outside and someone would let it back in, only to hear scratching on the door again as soon as they sat down. We always assumed the window was left open, but at this point, I don't know, I'm not so sure anymore. I couldn't talk to anyone about this without sounding, crazy, except for my brother, so I hope to find someone in here with at least some sort of similar experience. glitch in the matrix. So, for context, I got home from school a few days ago and I was hungry for a snack. I go into the kitchen and I see a little gummy bear on the ground. And these gummy bears are like the multivitamin things, right? That help with the immune system support. We ran out of those weeks ago and we haven't gotten any more. Anyway, I see this gummy bear and I throw it in the trash. The next morning, I walk into the kitchen and I see the same exact gummy bear on the ground in the exact same spot that it was in just the day before. I asked my mom if she had bought more gummy vitamin bears and she said, and I quote, "No, we haven't bought those in a while." So what is going on? I'm just completely dumbfounded at this point, so I say, okay. And I walk away, keeping my confusion to myself. Magically appearing cop glitch. I finally have one fit for the subreddit after lurking for a while. Last night, around 1:30 a.m., my girlfriend and I were hanging out with her 3-month-old son, and she wanted me to run around the corner to the corner gas station, which is an Exxon, to grab us each a drink, so I took her car. Now, mind you, I have my own SUV, but she insisted. Her car is a 2019 Corolla, owned by her, but leased through her brother. Let's call him Joshua. This is important for later. I drive around the corner and then up the main road to the Exxon. I grab the sodas, pay for them with my card, and then I hop back in the car to go back to her place. And for reference, the gas station is at a 4-way intersection with a second gas station immediately opposite of it. Well, I get to the edge of the parking lot and signal to turn back towards her place. There was a Prius at the Circle K across the way, getting ready to turn the opposite direction. But after scanning both directions, plus both ends of the 4-way, confirming that no one was on the road except for us, me and the Prius, before pulling out onto the main road. After doing that, I proceed down the main road, checking my rear view several times to make sure no one was behind me, and nobody was. It was just me, on the whole road. Well, I make a left onto the short street before the right turn into my girlfriend's apartment complex. I recheck the mirror, nothing, and no one behind me. Now this Corolla is super low to the ground, so lights behind me are immediately noticeable. I check again before I turn into the apartment complex parking lot, and still no one. I proceed into the parking lot, and then I park. I grab the sodas, and I start opening the driver's side door when I hear, "Excuse me, sir." "Sir?" "Local municipality police department." As I'm stepping out, startling the crap out of me, and I whip around to a cop standing there between the Corolla and my SUV, and I notice his patrol car parked and running behind the car, and parked literally just one spot over, as in right where I just drove past and no one was just a half a second ago. I looked right at the spot pulling in. He seemed startled to see me too, in a way which was kind of weird. He didn't have his emergency lights on, but his headlights were. He asks, "Are you Joshua?" And I tell him I'm not. He asks, "Do you know Joshua? And do you have permission to be driving his vehicle?" I say I do, because that's the honest truth. He never asks my name or to see ID or driver's license, which honestly surprised me. I explained that I just went to grab sodas for my girlfriend and I, and he says, "Oh, no, that's totally okay. My boss just wanted us to make contact with people we see leaving gas stations late at night because there's been a lot of thefts and robberies at the ones here in town lately." Which, honestly, I was unaware of. He tells me I'm all good, and then he'll get out of my hair, and then he leaves back to his patrol car. The thing is, though, how in the frosted mini wheats did he see me? And where in the cinnamon frosted mini wheats did he even come from? I watched carefully the whole way back, and no one was ever behind me or around or in front of me for the entire time. Nor was anyone in any parking lots along the way, and plus, if he had been, I would have seen him pull out behind me. It was like he just literally insta-spawned behind the car in the 2 seconds it took to turn it off and grab the sodas. And I can't get over the fact that he seemed spooked too, like I was. Like he had no clue what he was doing there. I don't know. It was by far the weirdest thing to happen to me in years. I mean, logically, if he had seen me leaving the Exxon, he would have had to have come the same way I did, which didn't happen because I would have seen him. He said he saw me leave the store, but there's literally no rhyme or reason to this encounter, and I just can't make any sense of it. Lost and found. This story happened 15 years ago, but I still can't stop thinking about it. I had this ring. It was a gift. It was one of those rings with a birthstone. Anyway, one day, I realized it was gone, which I found really weird because I had never taken it off, and I was extremely upset because it was a gift, and I'm the type of person who really appreciates gifts, even if it's just a chocolate bar, you know? It's just nice knowing that you're in somebody's mind. Anyway, a few months passed. I was on my way to take a shower, so I took off my shirt, and suddenly, I heard something falling to the floor. And there it was. It was the ring that I lost. That shirt had probably gone through the washing machine dozens of times, so it's impossible that the ring was just stuck on that shirt the entire time. I don't know, it's just weird. What's even weirder, though, is a few days later, I lost it again, and I still haven't found it to this day. I want to read this next story in the third-person perspective. No reason, I just want to see how it feels. Let me know if you like it or not. Haunted Town or Time Warp. Back in 2020, OP experienced something very odd that still lingers in her thoughts today. Whether it was a glitch, something paranormal, or maybe a combination of both remains a mystery. The experience began with her and her ex leaving around 6:45 p.m. They passed through a small town in California, located miles outside of the city in the middle of nowhere. After crossing over a bridge, it seemed like it took hours to reach another town that she enjoyed visiting to stargaze. They were heading to this very small town for a spooky adventure of sorts. The town had such a low population that the population sign was faded and illegible. It was a secluded area with extensive grass fields where farmers worked. They drove on windy roads, and despite relying on memory, she felt disoriented and asked her ex to map the way. The map indicated 9 minutes to the destination, but it felt like 30 minutes had passed. And when they checked again, the map still showed 4 minutes to Grimes, which is the town they were going, and it's a town especially known for spooky occurrences. Those 4 minutes felt like 21. As they approached the town, fields of grass transitioned into small homes with stop signs and street signs. Upon taking the first left, they saw a small dog in the middle of the road. She advised her ex not to approach it, feeling uneasy. But despite this, her ex got out to check the collar for a dog, but the dog snapped at him and ran away, causing other animals to go crazy too. Her ex returned to the car and they continued driving on. After taking a right turn, her ex noticed a possible satanic symbol on a house. This heightened their unease. Weird occurrences began as soon as they reached the town. They took a left turn towards a church where she had previously seen a cat turn into a human-like figure and then disappear. Once parked in front of the church, they both felt an overwhelming sense of unease. 4 people appeared, seemingly walking towards them. As she backed out and drove past them, she realized she couldn't see any of their faces, only blank skin. They then drove to an old friend's abandoned Victorian house, known for its haunted vibe, and parked. Her ex noticed the workshop and watched how her doors were open. They approached the stairs, but she felt something bad and told her ex to stop. Instantly, the car's headlights turned off, only to turn back on when they got back in the car. They drove around town and stopped back at the church again, but this time, they saw things dashing through the dark and a car with its lights on that disappeared without a trace. They also noticed a truck repeatedly driving around as if it was stuck in some sort of loop. She reassured her ex that they were experiencing the same thing. The car radio kept turning on and off as they parked further down the road out of town. They saw signs pointing to nowhere with Morning Star written on them. One sign even said Morning Star entrance with no apparent destination. As they drove back, they saw a car's headlights approaching from the other side of the road, but the lights went out as they neared it. They never passed any car until leaving the next town. And by the time they returned, it was between midnight and 1 a.m. The experience remains unexplained, but it is undeniably haunting. Again, let me know if you like that third-person perspective. If it matters to you at all, I don't know, just trying something a little different. Let's do some more. No explanation for this lost pendant. Last night, I was about to shower and my necklace broke off. In that moment, I grabbed it and I saw the pendant slide off the chain and I saw it fall to the floor. I didn't actually see it land on the floor, but I saw it make its way down and I definitely heard something drop. When I came down to the ground to pick it up, it wasn't anywhere at all. I was facing a corner in my bathroom when this happened, and there's no way that it would have jumped to the sink or anything. Yet, I checked everywhere, even in absurd places that it would never be. I've tried everything and I can't find it. I was hoping this was some kind of disappearing item phenomenon, but I don't know, it hasn't reappeared yet. My mom had just gifted me that pendant the exact same day. It was really expensive, and I want to find it before I see her again. Does anyone have any sort of explanation? This person included an edit to include, "It's been 4 weeks since I've posted this story, and I still haven't found the pendant." Cars keep disappearing. So, I've heard from people that cars keep disappearing from a one-way road. I used to think that this was just their imaginations running amok. But for the past many days, I've been observing cars really, they do disappear. Here's the story. 1. I'm driving on a highway and there's no exit. I saw a car just get onto the highway after me from the side of the road. After 10 seconds, I watched in the mirror and the car is just vanished. I was completely baffled. I couldn't even believe it with my own eyes. It was in broad daylight. I checked and checked, and there's no way that the car could have just disappeared like that. Another time, I was coming to work and it was nighttime. I was driving and there was a car behind me. It was very close, so I sped up. And as I did, I looked back and no car. Here's another time. I was coming home and my elder brother was with me. I saw a car and the headlights were bright and almost flooded the whole road. I drove for a few minutes and then suddenly the road was dark. I thought maybe the car just turned, but when I checked behind me and the maps on my screen, there was no road for the car to turn onto. It just vanished. My older brother also noticed this and he was visibly upset. I was also upset too, and we both didn't say anything because we clearly remember observing the car. This repeated experience with disappearing cars has really made me question whether our world is a simulation. Have you guys seen anything like this, or am I just hallucinating? My experience. Can anyone help me? About 10 years ago, my family and I, there's quite a lot of us, went to a place in Ireland for a weekend vacation. We ended up staying in this place that had a few bedrooms upstairs and one downstairs. My grandparents would take the bedroom downstairs as my granddad was having problems walking up and down stairs. Out of all of my family, I was very close with my granddad as he became kind of like a father figure to me while growing up. Anyway, a day later, I was remembering to grab something upstairs. I think it was my phone charger. Well, I got to the middle of the stairs and I could see inside of the room just opposite me. The bed, the window, and the dresser. There was a figure sitting on the bed looking out the window. It was the back of my granddad. It was 100% him. And I know what the back of my granddad looks like. It had his shirt and his dress pants on, and it was just sitting there, motionless. I spoke to him and I said, "Hey, come downstairs, Granddad. Everyone else is down there." I forgot what I was looking for as I heard my granddad's laughter coming from the living room in that moment. I raced downstairs. There was my granddad, sitting with my whole family, and I asked him, Weren't you just upstairs?" He shook his head and said no. He was in the living room the entire time. I ran back upstairs and whatever I saw was gone. I miss my granddad. It's been 10 years since he's passed. My experience with my daughter. I've only really told close family this story, seeing as we were all raised Catholic, and at the time this happened, I was very much still practicing. My daughter was about 3 years old when this happened. We had just moved into a new house and she was starting to play with the toys that I had packed and brought that my other daughter had used. She had a collection of toy guns, and my 3-year-old started playing with them. She would run around the house asking where her guns were, and when I told her, she would say, "No, Mommy, my real guns." And I just kind of looked at her and shrugged it off. Then she started telling me that she was a bad man and used to have a lot of guns. She also shared with me that she was shot and she pointed to her stomach and said, "Mommy, I was shot right here and it really hurt." And it's funny because where she said she was shot, she has a brown birthmark and she also has one on her thigh as well. She would go into my husband's closet and look at his clothes and say that she had a lot of nice suits, and that she wanted my husband to have her nice suits, but she doesn't know where they are. It's all really odd. This went on for about 6 months, and then one day it just kind of stopped. After that, I started doing past life research, and I also stopped practicing Catholicism because that experience was so crazy that I lost my faith in we all go to heaven after life, and other things like that. My daughter completely changed my entire worldview. I think her daughter was a mobster. Missing sidewalk. My husband and I live in a pretty walkable small town and like to take walks in the evening. We also will walk into the town square for special events and festivals, and we always follow the same path, or at least close to the same. There's one section of the walk where there's a huge oak tree growing between the road and the sidewalk. The roots have torn up the sidewalk and made it super jagged. The first few times, I almost tripped while walking on it. Now, we always step off the sidewalk, go around the tree on the road, and get back on the sidewalk on the other side. We've done this walk dozens of times. We went on vacation and haven't taken our walks in about 2 or maybe 3 weeks, but today, we started up again. We get to the big oak tree, and I step into the road to go around. My husband asks me what I'm doing, and I remind him about the torn up sidewalk. He asks me what I'm talking about, so I step over and I go to show him, but there's no sidewalk. The sidewalk ends neatly before the tree begins and doesn't resume until about maybe 500 feet on the other side of the intersection. There's mature grass, there's snow and leaves, but no signs of sidewalk or a sidewalk that's been recently removed. I say that I remember there being a torn up section of sidewalk in this spot and that it continued all the way up to the street. My husband swears that there never has been. He swears it's always just ended right there. Now I feel insane. We've walked that path hundreds of times over the past few years, and it's one of the largest trees in town, so there's no mistaking it for a different street. It's also right by our house. What do you think was going on there? Anyone feel like they've shifted to a parallel universe recently? On or around the night of April 18th, I believe I shifted universes. I bought these candlestick holders and I placed them upside down on my fireplace. I noted to myself that it was silly to place them with the holder side down, but it wasn't doing any harm, so I left them like that. I woke up the next morning and they were right side up, and there was nobody around to move them. I go to my brother's house the night of the 19th, and he, out of the blue, says he feels like he shifted realities the night before because of a discrepancy with his recollection of food packaging. Neither of us ever really feel like this, and it was crazy that we both found evidence of potentially shifting around the same time. I'm wondering if anyone else felt that way around that time too, or honestly just in general. I found more evidence today with a syrup bottle that I used before the shift, and now it's sealed back up again. It's a little freaky. Do you have any advice? Can you offer any solidarity? Thanks. Jumped reality. This happened in July or maybe August of 2022. I was driving from my house to town with my daughter. She was around 2 years old at the time. She was in her car seat in the back of the passenger side, and I, of course, was driving. We were heading east under an intersection. I was in the right lane, and I stopped because the light was red. We waited, and when the light turned green, I hit the gas and started to go. But as I drove under the light, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a white car running its red light and coming straight for us. It felt like time had slowed down. My stomach dropped to my knees and my heart raced. I remember looking back at my daughter in those seconds, and the only thought in my head was, they're going to kill my baby. I knew she would take most of the impact on her side, and there was nothing I could do except pray that we just make it out alive. Then, it was like I blinked, and suddenly we were under the light with no car at the intersection that could have hit us. I have no idea what happened, but I'm grateful for whatever that was. My comb vanished in my hand. Y'all, I'm freaking out. I was in the bathroom less than an hour ago, getting ready for the day, and I was combing my bangs. I often put my right hand holding the comb down to my side, while I use my left hand to style parts of my hair. Once I felt finished with my hair, I pulled my right hand up to put the comb in the medicine/mirror cabinet, and I caught the lip of the sink counter on the way up. The comb hit the lip. I heard and felt it, and then my fingers hit it next. Immediately, I noticed my hand was empty. I didn't hear anything hit the floor, but it probably just fell. I glance at the ground and I don't see a comb. I look a little longer, checking behind the door, under the sink, behind the toilet, and nothing. I turned on my flashlight and pulled every item in the cabinet out. Nothing. I checked the medicine cabinet to see if I placed it in there somehow, but still, nothing. I checked inside the cabinet doors themselves, like even within the hinges. I checked under and behind every object in the room, and I even went out into the hallway, and the comb just isn't anywhere. I've never felt scared losing something before. I mean, usually I can attribute losing something to odd chance, but this is bizarre. I came to my computer and searched "something vanished in my hand," and I found this subreddit, and it seems like the best place to share this moment, because I'm so confused. Did I slip into a different world? I was at school when a girl I barely knew approached me and started talking in an overly familiar manner. I didn't question it, really, because I just thought she was hitting on me, but eventually she said that she missed hanging out with me and Ryan. Ryan was a friend of mine, but not the kind of friend who I hung out with, and I certainly never hung out with this girl. She was a year below me, so she didn't know me from any classes, and as not to sound rude, I just went along with it as she recounted all of the dinner breaks that we'd spent together as a trio. But again, this simply didn't happen. Long story short, we ended up in a short relationship, but found out we weren't really compatible, so we parted ways. During this relationship, I did decide to ask her if pretending to know me was her way of flirting, but she got quite offended at this. Here's another story from the same person. 2 years later, I'm walking down the street, and a girl stops me and is over the moon to see me. I have no clue who this is, but she knows my name, and just to be polite, I ask her how she's been and all that. She says that we have to catch up sometime and that I should add her on Facebook. A couple of weeks later, I see her again, and she asks why I haven't added her on Facebook yet. I play it cool, asking why she didn't add me first. It's because she couldn't find me, which actually does make sense because I took my stepdad's name earlier that year. So I took a gamble and said that I couldn't spell her name, hoping that it wasn't Kimberly Smith or something. Luckily, her name was kind of hard to spell, so she writes it down for me. We meet up, and she starts reminiscing about the times that we spent together, and just like the first girl that I mentioned in my first story, we were apparently a trio with another minor friend. I asked this friend, Haley, about her, and she confirmed that they were inseparable friends and found it hilarious that I couldn't remember her at all. But I always considered Haley to be a bit of a loner, so that surprised me. In conclusion, I've had two girls both claiming we were close friends, and I remember neither of them. Have I slipped realities, or is this just a strange way of hitting on someone? It's worth noting that I'm an introvert, so I don't know how I seem to have made such an impression on these complete strangers, and I'm quite the loner. I'm unlikely to forget people who are friendly towards me. I also want to point out that I'm not a believer in glitches. I mean, I love to read them, but I mainly ponder on how they could be real. Phone screen uncracked itself overnight. Yesterday, my phone wouldn't charge and I accidentally dropped it. The screen had a large crack right across the middle from one side to the other. I could feel it under my fingers as a different texture in the screen, and I could see it easily in any lighting. I woke up today and the crack is healed. I can't find this crack at all. And I've already ordered a new phone because this one has other issues, but I can't feel it with my fingers or even see it in any lighting at all anymore. I'm vaguely hoping someone has a scientific explanation. Maybe the grease on my phone screen from my hands smoothed out the crack? I don't know, man. Can glass just recombine spontaneously under the right conditions? I've never seen this before, and I can't figure it out. Lost and found glitch. I lurk on here and enjoy the glitches, but I learned something here the other day and I just wanted to share how it worked out. My dog has a squeaky toy bone. It's pink. It's her favorite thing in the world and she takes it everywhere and it's rarely out of her sight. We were playing night before last and I threw it in the bedroom where she apparently couldn't find it, so I went in to grab it for her. But it was nowhere. I tore that room apart, and my dog was searching through everything, but we never found it. Hours later, and my girl is depressed, and she refuses to play with any other toy. That's when I remembered reading on here how people ask the universe or ask the house elves to return a lost object. So I did. I respectfully asked that if they were done playing with it themselves, if they could please return it because I had a very unhappy pup who missed it. A couple of hours later, we were coming back inside from our walk, and I happened to look down at a basket on the floor where I keep random stuff, and guess what was in there? The squeaky pink bone that my dog loves to play with. I just can't figure out how it ended up across the house from where I actually threw it. I did remember to thank them right away, and I praised them for being kind because I really want this to continue working. I also wanted to thank this subreddit because I never would have asked otherwise, and I would still have a sad dog. The subreddit is out here changing lives, man. I've got another UFO story for you. I put one in the last video, but I still want some more feedback, man. If you like these UFO stories, I may do a whole video, or I may just sprinkle them in here, because why not? Anyway, here it goes. My friend and I saw a UFO. This happened in February of 2020. I live in the central Arkansas area, just for reference. My buddy's grandparents own some farmland about 15 to 20 minutes outside of our town, and we would regularly spend the night out there on weekends with some of our other friends, making a fire, drinking, you get it. This particular weekend, it was just him and me. It was pretty dark by the time we got there, but it was the standard fare. We had decided to set up a fire on the dirt path that ran from my friend's grandparents' house through their field to the woods. We built the fire closer to the middle of the field. Not long after we get the fire started, we sit down and we get some music going and crack open our first beers. He turns off the music and notices something in the sky behind me. My back was facing the woods, and I turn around and I look. There was a bright light in the sky just above the tree line. I wasn't too weirded out by this, and I guess neither was he. However, I'd never seen a star that bright before. I opened up this Stargazer app on my phone that I had for forever, thinking that we were close to a planet, but before I could even point my phone in that direction, the star moved. At this point, we both froze. The light moved quickly and smoothly to the right without any bobs or weaves and was utterly silent. I noticed that the light was coming from some kind of flying vehicle and was actually much closer than we thought. It was probably 300 to 400 feet away, flying above the woods. This thing was also fast. Too fast to move that quietly without making some sort of noise. It was dark, and I couldn't make out what exactly the vehicle was, and the bright light emitting from its side sort of obscured any kind of look anyway. It moved perfectly parallel with the tree line, just right above it. And it seemed like it had left when it noticed that we had noticed it. We continued watching as this UFO just quickly and quietly moved on in a straight line until it was beyond our sight just a few seconds later. We sort of just looked at each other like, what in the Count Chocula was that? And we began to discuss what we saw, sort of in hushed tones like we were dreaming or something. 20 minutes or so later, we hear a noise coming from the sky, and we see two loud-ass planes flying side by side, going exactly the direction that this UFO had gone just moments ago. At this point, we started to think that it was a military drone of some kind, and we didn't see or hear anything else for the rest of the night. I still think about it every now and then and decided to post this looking for some opinions. So, what do you think it could have been? I was never there before. I had never in my life been to Universal, but when I was planning our dual vacation to Disney and Universal, my kids kept asking me what rides were at Disney because I had been there before, and I told them every single ride and every detail that I could remember. The Mummy, Men in Black, The Simpsons, you get it. Only to realize that not one of those rides were Disney rides. My explanation was, well, maybe Disney used to own them. I know, that's stupid, but, whatever gets me through the day. Well, we go on our trip and go to Men in Black, and we're waiting in line, and I can tell my husband everything that's going to happen right before it does happen. It's like I remembered a script. Same thing is happening on all the other rides as well. However, it doesn't happen on the newer rides like the Harry Potter rides. I called my mom and I asked her again while we were there if we had ever been there before, and she again said no. I'm 38 years old and I would have definitely remembered, but I kept asking, and it feels wrong, but I feel like I'm being lied to. But I also know for a fact that I've never been to Universal, and I've never been on those rides prior. I've never watched any videos of the rides either. Has anyone else ever had this happen? Blue Fireflies. I recently came across this sub and felt this to be the perfect place to share an unexplainable experience. Perhaps someone will be able to relate or tell me how this happened. When I was in high school, a small group of friends and I were doing a sleepover in her backyard. We were laying on the trampoline with sleeping bags. One of us points out that there are fireflies, except instead of yellow or green flashing lights, they're blue. And instead of being able to catch the insect, the blue light flashes and the firefly seemingly disappear because we could never catch one in our hands. We notice the blue fireflies are bunched close together and moving together in a single direction. Even though it was 11 p.m. or so, we followed them out of the backyard, down the street, into a park. Only somehow, none of us remembered actually following them until we all realized we were at the park and the blue flashing lights had stopped. We all kind of got tears in our eyes and were shaking because we couldn't believe how we would be so compelled to follow these lights and coming to the realization of what just happened. There was no drinking or drugs involved that night, and it never happened again. But I do think of this experience whenever I see real fireflies. Another minor glitch. This is just a funny coincidence rather than a proper glitch, but years ago, studying late at my university library, I was very bored and also extremely unexcited at the prospect of going back to my apartment, going to bed, and doing more of the same the next day. I remember thinking that I really wished one of my old school friends, who at the time was studying somewhere else several hundred miles away, was there, because I remember having so much fun with them. I packed up my stuff and left to go home, and there, standing outside the library entrance, was that friend. He'd come to this major city that I was in for reasons that I now forget. It might have just been on a whim to visit, or maybe he was passing through, I really don't remember. And he called me at my apartment. My flatmate told him that she thought I was studying at the library, so he went there and waited for me to come out. Right as I was wishing he would show up, he was outside, just a few meters away. We proceeded to have an amazingly fun night. Some guy walking down my street just vanished. I'm a bit creeped out at the moment. I just looked out my front window for a mail truck I thought I heard to see if he put something in my box. I saw a young man, medium build, short black hair with a mustache and goatee combo, kinda looked mid-eastern maybe, walking along, about to go past my house at a pretty decent pace, at my neighbor's driveway almost. But I opened the door to check not 15 seconds later, and now he's nowhere to be found. I have a good view in all directions once I step onto the porch. He didn't double back and reverse direction, and he never went past my house either. The The only place he could have possibly gone was very quickly into my next door neighbor's house before I opened my front door. I've never seen him before, and he definitely doesn't live next door. But I know I saw him, and I'm not impaired in any way. Has anyone else ever experienced anything like this? Huge truck in a tiny parking lot just disappeared. So there's this tiny strip mall nearby. I'm not sure if it's technically a strip mall, but it's very small. It's like a row of 3 businesses, a pizzeria, a laundromat, and a Chinese takeout spot, surrounded by a very small parking lot. It's right off of a main and busy road. I'd pulled into a parking spot in order to turn around and go the opposite way that I came from on the busy road. I had 3 of my kids with me, the oldest being around 19 at the time, and he was sitting in the front passenger seat. I was ready to back out of the parking spot, so I looked to the right to check if there were any cars coming, and there was this huge truck, like one of those big Mac delivery trucks. I then looked to my left, hoping no cars were coming into the parking lot from that way, because it would definitely cause this mini traffic jam. I didn't see anyone coming from the left, so I immediately looked back to the right again, and the truck is gone. I looked around, thinking maybe it continued on behind me and I just missed it, but as I was turning my head, I didn't see any truck anywhere in sight. I looked at my oldest and I asked him if he had seen the truck to make sure that I wasn't imagining it or something, and he said that he had seen it and asked what the heck just happened. I don't know. I just sat there for a minute in shock and confusion, really. I realized then that it would have actually been impossible for this truck to be coming around the corner of the building like it appeared to be doing, because the parking lot is so small and so narrow. Even regular pickup trucks and SUVs barely fit. Which I know because I've had plenty of vehicle rentals over the years and have eaten from those 2 food spots more times than I can count, as well as using the laundromat regularly at one point when my washer broke down on me. This was the first time something so obvious just disappeared on me, and there was someone else with me to witness it. This was 3 or 4 years ago, but it still randomly pops into my head pretty often. I think because of how shocking it was to experience. Lights turn on after I notice they're off. Imagine the following scenario. You're walking down a city street at night and come to an intersection. Up ahead looks normal, as does the street to your left, but upon looking to your right, you realize that one of the streetlights further down isn't on. And that's odd. Not only is that one light off, but the space beneath that streetlight is fully dark, as if the 2 other working lights around it were somehow blocked from adding their own dim glow to the space between. As soon as you realize that fact consciously, that one light is suddenly on, as if some invisible hand hit an off-screen light switch, and what was dark is now fully lit like its surroundings. This scenario has happened to me many, many times over the course of my life, and it's not just streetlights. I've seen car headlights do this, entire storefronts do this, and one time, a mall's headmast sign, like the big-ass sign next to the freeway. The best way I can describe it is like if a video game is trying to load in effects and somehow forgot to load the light for one particular source until I noticed it, in which case, bam, it's now working. In real time, I'd say this whole effect, end to end, takes basically 1 second. from me noticing the missing light to the light suddenly being on. The only reason I know it was off and that I'm not just imagining things is A, I noticed the darkness/missing luminescence in a particular area that is now somehow bright, and I can fully describe it to you. And B, it's happened so many times throughout my life. Has anyone else ever experienced this? Time missing. A few years ago, a friend and I had drove out to meet up with some other people at a bar about an hour away from home. I didn't drink too much because I was the driver, and we eventually left the city to head home, and I remember checking a text at one point not long after leaving. Next thing I know, we're going off the road in a curve. I was able to correct it and got back on the path with no problem. I checked my phone again, wondering what the F, and I saw that the text I had last looked at was 45 minutes prior. So, for all that while, neither me nor my friend have any recollection of that span of time, and we both came to only while going off-road way later. Not sure what happened that night. Aliens? Glitch in the Matrix? I'm not sure what to think, and it still confuses me and my buddy to this day. Disappearing banana. So, weird things keep happening pretty frequently lately. Nobody believed me for a while, but my husband has been starting to notice things too. Just last night, I was up late doing some work in my office on the opposite side of the house as our bedroom when he texted me from bed telling me to stop jiving by the bedroom door. I was not, in fact, jiving. The kids were all asleep, and the dog was with me. I'm having trouble remembering the specific details of each incident recently, so I'm going to try to post them as they happen. This one will be short. My toddler was eating a banana, and as he got near the end, he dropped a little piece as he was pulling the last little bit from the peel. He always refuses to eat that last bite, so, like usual, I told him to give it to the dog. I was about to tell him to pick up the piece he dropped right as he stepped on it. I stopped him and had him lift his foot up so I could get the piece of banana off the bottom of his slipper. But there was no banana there. Nothing on the floor either. My daughter saw all of it happen, which I know because she exclaimed, "What? Where'd the banana go?" So I know I wasn't mistaken or imagining anything. Where the heck did that piece of banana go? A parcel that was never there. What I'm about to share just happened a few minutes before writing this post, and I swear it's true. I was told to pick up a parcel on our apartment mailbox before going home. As I was about to pick up the parcel, our mailbox didn't contain anything other than an envelope for our electricity bill. After getting the bill, I put my hand inside the box to thoroughly check if I missed it, because the parcel might have been small. After confirming that there was nothing left inside the mailbox, I then proceeded to call my girlfriend to tell her that the parcel was not left in the mailbox. I then talked to the security guard on duty to confirm if there was a parcel left under our name, and he told me to just double check. So I did. But when I got back, the parcel was there, right by the door of the mailbox. And it's not small, after all, it's a plastic t-shirt, which would not be missed by my hand while checking the first time. After that, I started getting goosebumps, and I realized that it was very weird for that to happen. One, nobody might have put it back since I'm just a few feet away from the mailbox. Two, The mailbox is 5 inches tall and 5 inches wide, which by touching the back wall means you've reached everything there is to reach. And 3, the item is fitted in there so that you need to exert a little bit of force to get it out. I don't know what happened. If anyone's experienced the same, please share, because I'm thinking of some supernatural occurrence aside from it being a glitch in the Matrix.